All right. Welcome back. We are MDEV1001. That's Mobile Data Management in the summer 2023 semester at Georgian. And it's week 3, part 1 of our broadcast in recording together. And this week's a funny week. I wanted to start by talking about where we're sitting right here. There we go. And it's my friend Indu. All right, and here is where last week we talked about the entity relationship diagrams and a bunch of stuff. And this week, wow, this is terrible. This is just terrible. And this week, oh man, this is not going to happen today. It's bizarre. I don't know what the hell. What's going on today compared to normal? This is like not a normal thing, my friends, right? Maybe I'm just doing too much all at once. I don't know. Let's try this one more time. So, by the way, the video is going beautifully on YouTube, but it's just not happening greatly on Teams for some reason. All right, let's try this out one more time. And
well, we can see your screen.
What was that?
No, I said we were seeing your screen. We were seeing your presentation.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have multiple instances?
It just went out now.
It's what?
No, it just went blank now, but we were seeing your screen. We were seeing the slide.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's back up. We can see the slide. Yeah.
You can see it, but problem is I'm having this really weird thing with everything. So I was just saying. So let's continue. Oh my God. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. This is like terrible. Just going to join this one and we're going to just do some troubleshooting here. Oh, my friends, this is going to be one of those nights, one of those days. It's nothing, you know what happens when good things happen or bad things happen to good people. When you think things are going to work out and they just don't. All right, let's do some troubleshooting. Before I start with my craziness, just give me 1 second while I troubleshoot what's going on with my machine, because my machine should handle all this stuff, not a problem. So hopefully you guys can go through it, and I'll just look at my task manager. Who's got? Oh yeah, my YouTube stream is perfect. It's amazing. It's just that if my YouTube stream is awesome, but my Teams is no good, that's a bad thing, right? So let's see what's going on here. I'm just going to go through Teams. It looks like I have several instances. So what I'm going to do with you guys is a couple things. I'm going to attempt to restart the Teams service for myself, which means I'm just going to leave and I'll come back in 2 minutes, and hopefully we can resolve our technical issues and continue with today as if nothing happened. Okay?
You're muted.
Yeah, someone muted me. As if nothing happened. I'm gonna go through and try things out, and I'm going to like I said, restart my service as if nothing happened, and then continue. So I'll be back in like a couple minutes, I hope. Okay? So please bear with me. Don't leave, and I'll be right back. Thanks. All right. End task. And for the people watching me on YouTube doing this stuff, this is Microsoft for you, right? What can I do? It's bizarre. You know, I keep saying to myself that Teams is one day going to mature into a decent app, and I find that I had just so many problems with it technically than any other app I've used in terms of streaming. I can use Discord to stream better than Teams for some reason, which is unbelievable, Microsoft. Okay, let's try this thing again. It looks like I've I've gone through my task manager and I'm gonna attempt to restart Teams. Let's see if this actually works. Teams, come back up, Teams. You know, the alternative is, of course, to actually use Discord. Oh, see, look at this. Restart Teams. To do my stream, which is a terrible thing. Okay, let's try this one more time. Busy. Okay, we're going to try this out. And wow. Wow. Oh. Having lots of trouble today. Challenges. Okay. Maybe this might work now. Maybe. We'll see how it goes. I restarted my Teams. And then let's see if it actually works. And I'm going to start trying to share stuff again. And hopefully it's not going to. Hopefully it is not going to do the thing that I don't want it to do. All right. And thank you so much for being patient with me, guys. This is not my normal MO, for this stuff at all. All right. So let us continue with how it's supposed to be. And I'm going to put you guys over here so I can make sure that you guys are there. That's good. I'll keep that thing open. I'm not going to close anything this time, and it looks like you might be seeing everything that I'm seeing. All right. Okay. Fantastic. So yes, last week we were talking about SQLite and a little bit. We talked about data modeling and data models, the entity relationship diagrams. Actually, one of the things that I asked you to do in class exercise 2 is to create a simple ERD. And I know that some people had done that. By the way, people who are asking about in-class exercises, and they're like, hey, Tom, I missed my in-class exercise. What do I do? Remember what I talked about before in week 1, that you get 2 in-class exercises that you can completely not do and still do 100%. Okay, so it's not critical if you miss something. I'm not going to hold it against you, as long as you're within the 10 in-class exercise. If you do 10 in-class exercises, then we won't have a problem doing anything like this at all. You'll be fine. But anyways, we talked about this last time. You're going to create an entity relationship diagram, which is the first thing you're doing. And then we talked about database model classes and schemas and how they work. We also just discussed database normalization, optimization. And I asked you last week not to normalize because it requires you to create a whole new table or 2. And we're taking it slow this semester in terms of getting you going because that's how I like to go. I like to go slow with this stuff because it's quite overwhelming for people who've never done database, who've never done any kind of coding and those kind of things. So that's why I'm going pretty slow and not for any other reason. All right. At the same time, let's take a look here at assignment 1. Assignment 1, I promised you, was up. I did put it up, but let's see it again. Hopefully you guys can see this. So here is assignment 1. This is due next week. That's Sunday, June 4th. You'll notice it's not a difficult assignment to do. And why? Because it's worth 5% of your final grade. It's like a little bit more than your in-class exercise. And so, but it gives you a week to kind of fiddle around and all that kind of stuff, which I think is a good thing, to get going on to start with, especially if you've never done databases before. If you've never done that kind of stuff, I think it's going to give you an opportunity to, to really kind of fool around with the command line a bit. And I haven't mentioned in this entire assignment that you can use Visual Studio Code, that you're going to use any other kind of command line or user interface for this or anything like that. I haven't mentioned anything like that at all. Like where I've told you, like, hey, you have to do you use a certain tool or do a certain thing. So that's one thing. So let's talk about this. So SQLite command line practice is what this is called. Working with a partner or on your own. Create a simple SQLite database using the Excel data file provided. Now, one thing I failed to do, and I know that I did that, is in assignments, if you look at the assignment 1 data, the SQL data, I put in the actual PDF document, but I forgot to put in the database file. I'm going to link that in there right now. So that way you have it. I also shared this with you last week, which was, pretty good. But what if you missed last week? What if you missed the exercise? What if this is your first week? I'm also going to put in assignment 1 details just as an additional document right here. So that way, even if you, you haven't been able to see it or you can't see it, and you haven't joined a group yet, you can still see the assignment here under assignments. That's what I want you guys to do. I think that's important. This is a group assignment. And like I mentioned last week, what you should do is you should definitely, kind of look at groups. Here's your groups right here. And you can see that under groups, some of you have joined groups, have made groups of 2 and 1. And I wanted to ask you guys this now for the people that are here. Are there any people that are here, any students that are in a group that they want me to remove them from? So that's something that I want you guys to let me know. If not, or if you've seen or you're seeing this later on, please, what I'd ask you to do is either DM me on Discord or send me an email, and I will remove you from the group. Otherwise, you're going to be with a group that maybe you don't want to be with. I've created a lot of groups. I've created 65 groups. So if you really want to do this thing alone and you're not someone who likes to work with other people, that's fine. I will accept it. You can work with on your own. But in order for you to work on your own, you need to join a group. So please do that. Please join a group like right away, right? See if I can turn on that camera at the same time before it crashes me. All right, yeah. So please, like I said, please join a group right away if you can. That would be great. And this way, what'll happen is if you do join a group, then it should be no problem. Okay, so let's try that one more time. And so, all right. Any questions around this at all when it comes to groups? I'm looking at the Teams thing and seeing if you guys have any questions. If not, we're going to continue to move on. All right, so that's kind of part 1. So part 1 is you select a group, and then if you look at assignments, you'll see the Dropbox. So this Dropbox right here, assignment 1, SQLite data, it's going to be available to you if you join a group. If you didn't join a group, you'll only see this, assignment 1 details. And you can't submit your assignment here. You need to submit your assignment here, which is the Dropbox. This is the submission box, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so please make sure you join a group. See if Indu can actually come in now. There we go. Okay, so that's the first thing. Let's continue back with that assignment detail. So the first thing is you need to join a group. Next part. What you're going to be doing is you're going to create a simple database based on or using the Excel data that I've provided for you as a starting point. And what this means is I've given you 10 pieces of data. Let's take a look, right? It looks like this. And these 10 pieces of data are some of my favorite movies, okay, from back in the day. I feel like an old guy, right? But it is what it is, right? And so yeah, and I've given you a couple of things like this. For example, short description, an MPA rating, critics rating, and a bunch of stuff, right? So that's what I want you guys to do. This is a non-normalized, list of data that is kind of listed here. And I talked about this. So question for you guys, and this is something that I wanted to talk about as just a review from last week as I continue talking about the assignment. How would I normalize this table? What would you guys do? And anyone can answer. So what would I do here? So I got this bunch of data. It's put in what seems like a fairly organized pattern, but I told you it's not normalized. Why is it not normalized? And what would you? Yes, Hitesh, come online.
We can make a different separate table for studio, then genres, then directors, writers, actors, where the data duplication is happening, and then have like their own data in their tables with their primary keys, and refer that primary key as a foreign key in the main movie table.
Yeah, you can do
On a
that.
snap relationship kind of thing.
And we talked about, thank you for that. And we also have, we had another hand there. I always try it.
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
Yes.
So he actually said what I had in mind. So
Wait, let me try your name here. Kosis.
Kosi, just call me Kosi. Kosi is fine.
No, man, I want to try it out, like how it actually looks. So this is a challenge for me.
Okay.
This is
Okay.
okay. So Kosis, so Chuku?
Yeah,
Is it?
Kosisochukwu, that's it.
Kosisochukwu. I'm going to try and call you that as much as I can because, that's your name. I don't want to just shorten your name. That's like someone making me like, Professor T because they can't pronounce my name.
Oh
I'll try my
yeah.
best, okay? And so,
Okay.
Kosisochukwu, here's the thing
Yeah.
that I want to talk about, right? So Hitesh kind of said, hey, we can make these extra tables. Is there another way that we could normalize that of? We talked about like kind of normalization levels, if we said, almost like first normal form and second normal form and third normal form. What would you do to make it? Is there any other thing that you would do to normalize? Talk to me.
I think he mentioned using them as foreign keys in the movie table.
Yep.
So I think I would rather use the movie ID as a foreign key in the separate tables when I make them. That's just I think the different thing I'll do.
Is either way more preferred? How about anyone else? Anyone who has any experience with databases? I know it sounds like you have a little bit of experience, but anyone else have any thoughts? Right? We can make different rows. You can make the same, the list things multiple times, but that's duplication. We want to reduce duplication, and so that's not a good thing, right? So we don't want that to happen. But there is a bit of a challenge here. So because we're using a relational database, having one writer, one genre, one actor, no problem. That's kind of a normalization in many ways, right? So that's kind of what it is. One actor, one genre, one director, one writer. That's easy. But we don't have that. We have a list of these things, right? So this is where it's not normalized. Could we parse the list, worst case scenario, if you're going to use it in your mobile device? There she is. So Chukwu, it's great. I'm seeing your face. That's awesome. So is there a way of, kind of doing something different like this? Like we're saying, could you actually read it, the string array or the string list somehow in Android or iOS? Is there a way of doing that? What would you do? I mean, I'm thinking about a workaround here is what I'm thinking about. Like if you couldn't do it, you couldn't normalize, it was too complex for you, and you're going to get a customer one day that's going to say, here's some data, as an example, can you help me out? And, would you be able to do it in a different way? What do you think?
But you still want it in a structured database, or are you saying we can go to like a non?
No, I want it structured. I want it structured like this, but is there a way you can use code to do the work for you? It's not really preferred, but is there a way of doing it?
Like I mean, there are ways using like the comma delineated list to break them up based on a comma, as long as the rest of it follows that pattern.
There we go.
Like if you have a dash or something, like in the second in the matrix, right? You have to be careful that you're only looking for separations on commas, not on dashes or spaces, because then you'll get a whole list of other stuff too.
So yeah, and I like your answer. And the reason why I'm talking about this because quite often we'll get something like this. We're not going to get something that's normalized, guys. It's not going to happen. All right, we're going to get like a bunch of data like this, and the customer's going to give it to us. And they'll say, "Look, we organized it for you so nicely," and you're going to be like, "Thank you so much," but it's we're trying to do a relational database, and there's some problems here. Why? Because of this. Here's something you could put. Okay, how about this? You could put genre 1, genre 2, and genre 3. You could do that. Director 1, director 2, director 3, writer 1, and so on. And just kind of list the top 3 or top 2 actors or directors or genre, kind of in one table. So you could break these into multiple columns. That is something that has also been done. We've seen that in the past without creating separate tables. Again, I'm thinking about mobile right now. I'm not thinking about, web or a more complete app. I'm thinking about mobile apps and how to make this work with one table, because one table is just that much easier for a coder, especially when, I'm just going to move you guys on this side, hopefully it won't crash, especially when, you have you have so many other jobs to do as a mobile developer. You need to make the interface and stuff. You want to make this work. And that's also another option where you say, okay, well, thank you. You give me the actors column, but I'm going to make actors 1, 2, 3, and writers 1, 2, 3, and directors 1, 2, 3, and genres 1, 2, 3. Challenge with that approach is when you're using SQL data, SQLite data, how do you do queries, right? Because you're going to have to say something like, I want directors 1 or 2 or 3, and genres 1 or 2 or 3, and writers 1 or 2 or 3, and so on. By the way, it's not going to be any much simpler if you have another table, because you're going to take 2 tables and go, I want this movie where the actor is Mark Hamill and the year is 1977, right, as an example. And then it's going to kind of put things together and give you the results of your query in a nice string, which is what it's going to do, right? So what I'm telling you is, yes, we can normalize, and this is a good thing, right? But I'm also telling you that people do whatever they need to do to make it work for mobile, which is the reality, all right? So, and that's why, going back to what I've talked about here in the Word document for your assignment, is your SQLite database should include a list of your top 10 movies added to my top 10 movies, right? Now, if you're working with somebody else, right, and you're not working alone, you're working with other person, they need to put their top 10 movies in there as well. And you should probably show them doing some of the commands, right, so that we all can practice doing SQLite, because it's important. Because once you know how to do SQLite, then you can do it for iOS or Android, and you know how to build a database and all that kind of stuff from scratch. You understand the commands. Once we understand the commands, we can understand how they relate from a programming perspective, and we connect them next week, okay, which is the next part. So that's kind of what I've asked you guys to do. So that's part of it. It's making your own top 10. This is going to take some time, and that's why I've given you a week to do it, okay, or a little bit more than a week. Think about what your top 10 movies are. Keep it simple. Keep it clean. Okay, I have to say that. Sorry. I know sometimes I get, movies that are weird. And it says each movie, record will include movie titles, studios, genres, directors, all this stuff that I kind of included in the Excel file for you. You can use IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, or some other site, that gives you the data. You don't have to cite it. Okay, it's okay. I'm going to trust you on this kind of thing. And then your database does not have to be normalized, because that's what I put in here. And no front-end UI or authentication or anything like that is required. You don't have to do that. I'm not asking for an Android app or an iOS app. However, future releases, future things that you're going to do with this assignment is probably going to get you guys to do some kind of full CRUD with the data that you put together. So this is the first step. Put together your data, right? And your data's got to be clean. It's got to be organized. It's got to be the same as my data in terms of the columns and everything else that you kind of put together, okay? And I've kind of broken it down like this. 5 marks to make sure that you use the Excel file as a starting point, and you create the table that we did. Now, this is kind of working off of the in-class exercise from last week. It's like, hey, I can continue the work that I did last week with my in-class exercise, and you can add in your data. That's the beautiful thing about this, if you did last week's in-class exercise. However, I have to assume that some of you didn't, right? Which is why I'm saying, hey, I'm going to pay you 5 marks for this, right? And then your primary key should be the movie ID. I'm giving you 5 marks to make sure your primary ID is primary key is the movie ID. And why? Because some people will, for whatever reason, they'll create the table and then they'll forget to do that. And that's a bad thing. Add the movies provided in the Excel file, and at least 10 of your own. 20 if you're working with a partner. I'm giving you 20 marks for that. So that's the content, the actual content itself. And that's the easy part. I think that's the part where, it's easy to do. It's practice for you to do it. Everyone should have a hand in it. And then here is the next part, and this is part 2. Part 2 is also fairly straightforward, and we haven't talked about how to do all this, right? So this is a bit of research on your part. This is some part, because you guys are grad students. This is not a beginning course. This is not something that, I expect you to have never touched technology before. So there's a bit of research, and not a lot. Okay, you can look this stuff up easily. ChatGPT will be your friend on this one, 100%. Here's what you can do, okay? I want 5 queries, and I want the output from those queries. So create a SQL query that displays all the movies in the database. Oh, that's an easy one, okay? Create a SQL query that displays all the movies with a rating greater than 8. A little bit more complex. Create a SQL query that displays all the movies titles that start with a B. right? Okay, well that's a little bit more tricky, all right, but not much. And then create a SQL query that displays all the movies that were released prior to 2000 where the rating is 8.2 or greater. But that means that your rating must be some kind of number, like we talked about before. And then create a SQL query that displays all the movies that were released between 1990 and 2010. Hopefully, if you don't have any movies in that range, add them or change the date range. Tell me, you know what, Tom, I don't have any movies in this range, and I want to add movies between 1974 and whatever. It's fine, okay, but it's got to be a kind of restricted or a bounded date range with an MPA rating of R. Okay, so some kind of R-rated movie. All right, that's it. I want you to try this out. It's really that simple. It's more like an in-class exercise, but I'm forcing you and I'm paying you to do console commands, right? So that way you have it, and you're also going to use this database. This is not something that's going to go away. Once you make this database, the assumption is for assignment 2 that you're going to have this thing ready to rock and roll so I can do an actual thing with you guys, like where there's a user interface on the front end, right? If you don't have this database by assignment 2, you're going to have to create one. I'm not paying you again for it. You get paid once. Okay, this is your payment for your database. So make it up, practice your commands, get good at this kind of stuff, and then you should be good to go. Details, version control. You must use version control. GitHub, we talked about this before. Put up your database with GitHub, just like you did with your in-class exercise 2. A video presentation is there in part 4 for YouTube with you and potentially your partner, right, to talk about your database functionality. Things that I want you to do is zip up your database project files as a backup. I use that as a backup only just in case somehow your GitHub is inaccessible, and then you would get 0. That's a bad thing, and I don't want that to happen. And then a link to your video presentation, we talked about this before, is mandatory. No video, no marks. All right, so that's kind of happening. And there's a small little breakdown of where the marks are coming from. I think I did it right. And it's where 5% of your final grade, blah, 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 blah. And it's due, like I said before, next weekend. So Sunday, June 4th, 2023. Lots of time to get it done. I know what people do. You have a lot of stuff going on. Some of you are going to wait till the Sunday, like some of you did for this in-class exercise. And you're going to email me or text me, do all these things, even call me on the phone. People call me on the phone too this weekend. It's funny. And I'm not available Saturdays and Sundays. I respect your weekend. Target Friday. Target some other day. Don't wait until Sunday and said, I have this and it's not working and I have a problem. And you want help for this stuff, you have from now until the Friday before that weekend to talk to me. It's not like it's going to be the last minute. And when we get together on the Wednesdays, you still have until Friday to send me stuff and get me to give you help, right? So, and you're going to see me tomorrow morning too, right? So it's not impossible that you have it. You can also book some time if you really want to book some time with me from now until that time for any assignment, even in-class exercises. You can always book some time. It could be virtual. It could be in person. We could stay after class a lot of times to make sure this is good. I want to make sure you guys are all happy, but we need to be reasonable, right? So please make sure that you do this. I think this is a super simple assignment. I think it'll get you practicing. It'll get your hands into SQLite a little bit, and it'll give me the database that I need for the next step. Okay. Questions around assignment 1. I think it's pretty simple, but that's the professor talking in me that thinks it's pretty simple, right? So anyone have a problem, or are you worried? You have any doubts? That kind of stuff. Anybody? I'm just looking at the chat here. And I see Vivek, you've come off of mute. Did you have a question? Maybe it's an accident. Okay, you're muted. All right, so if there's no questions, that's assignment 1. And I wanted to talk about that because I know I owed that from you from last week. I told you it wasn't going to be a difficult one. This is not difficult. How did you guys feel about assignment or in-class exercise 2? You guys just did in-class exercise 2. Was it long? Did you find that it was too long for you guys to do? I don't think so, right? I mean, here's something else. Some people are very innovative. Is there a quick way to take an Excel spreadsheet like this and then convert it into like a database? Is there? What do you think? Can I take this stuff right here and somehow import this data somehow? Is there a way? And some people are saying nodding. Eric's nodding. It's good. So let's see if we can find that. So again, I'm on Windows here for a second. But let's take a look. So if I was to try and do that, let's say kind of like import, CSV file, because that's what it probably would have to be, into SQLite, right? And we'll say, not Python, we'll just say SQLite. Is there a way? And it says SQLite tutorial. Look, there is something. It says import a CSV file into a SQL table. And look, I've got it's all because of Hitesh. ChatGPT thing here as well, the side that was coming up, all right? Because now that's it. That's a new thing. I'm using ChatGPT all the time, right? And it says importing. How do you do it? First, the SQLite tool creates a table. SQLite 3 tool use the first row of the CSV file as names of the columns of the table. How do you do it to import the CSV file into the sites below? Look, here's the schema, right? And, to view the cities, you can drop the table if you want. But how do you do it? And it says SQLite import. Look at this, right? SQLite city node header.csv cities. Now, this is interesting because it says, it removes the header. So why? Because the header would be an extra piece of data, right? So this kind of tells you how to do this kind of stuff where we want to import it in this way. Now, here we're using SQLite Studio. We're not doing SQLite Studio. We're just, using command line. But if you wanted to use some kind of user interface to get this done too, all the power to you. I don't care how you put it up. I'm telling you, there's other things to make your life easy, right? To get the same thing done that we had done. So what it says is make the schema first. That's the wisdom. And once you've made the schema, right, then you're good to go. And it says to verify the import, use the schema command to display. And so this is what it says here. Second, use the command import with the file name to import the data from the city file into the cities table. To verify the import, use this. Let's try it, right? Let's do it. So you've got the data, right? And I don't know. Let's see what happens, right? And I'm going to do that here on the Mac side. So here's my MacBook Pro, and I'm going to do it with you guys because I know you have to use the MacBook Pro anyway. And now one thing I need to do is I need to get the CSV file here, right, on my MacBook Pro. And so one thing that what I miss about TeamViewer, I used to use TeamViewer for this kind of remote stuff, right, is you can just drag and drop a file across. Can you drag and drop across with Google, remote desktop? No, right? So you have to log in and get it somehow. And so I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to use Chrome here. And this is on the Mac side of the house. Hopefully it's not going to crash. And I'm just going to, by the way, my Mac is an old man, like I told you before, or, it's going to take its time. And I'm just going to log into our Blackboard. And let's see if I can get it, because I put it up on Blackboard for you guys. This is kind of the same approach that you would use if, you were kind of downloading it. Let's do it. Oh, man. Authenticator code. I got to take that offline. Hold on a second. 1 second. And we will do this thing. I swear. All right. Don't ask me again. For 30 days. All right, here we go. Let's put that back. All right, so here it is. And I'm just going to go into our course, which is this one right here. And then just do what you would do, which is I would go to assignments. And then here's that database, that XLS file, right? Now, there's some assumptions we have to make. Do I have a converter for XLS? Do I have it, right? And what if you don't, right? So what I'm going to do to prepare for this is actually convert it to a CSV for you guys and put it here inside of your assignment 1D test, because that's the kind of guy that I am. It's going to be easy for me. It's going to be easy for you, right? I want to make it easy. So let's do it. So back to this. This is on the Windows side. I have my Excel spreadsheet. By the way, for those people who've never made a CSV file, I'm going to export, right? And it tells me or save as, I think, sorry, save as. And let's kind of go recent, one day when this decides to do what it's supposed to do.
I think you could have done it in the export.
Maybe I
Actually.
could have. Maybe I could have.
Export and then file change type at the bottom.
Okay, there you go. Beautiful. You're wonderful. And then just go here and you can see CSV. Woohoo! Right? And then save as. And we're just going to call this database data CSV. We'll put it in assignments. That's where I want it. Save. And it's going to make a comma delimited. That's what it is. A comma delimited file one day when my Excel feels like working. Okay. It's not a lot of data. But one thing we should always check to see before we use it is to see what it looks like, the data. All right, so here's my CSV file. Here it is. And let's, kind of edit it. And you should be able to see if I click edit, you should see that a text document looks like this, right? So there's your this CSV file, right? And so what it did was it converted everything into kind of everything I need. Here's something else that I have a problem with. If I did this, we want to make our movie ID auto incremented, okay, which is a challenge, right? Here, I'm giving it a number, right? But we can alter the table afterwards and make it auto incrementing, right? Does that make sense? So at the beginning, we can do that. Well, we can see what we get. We can also alter the schema of the table afterwards. Let's discuss this a little bit. And I'm not going to go through the entire. I want you guys to do some work too. So, so let's see if it's not so bad. So I'm going to take this database file, yay, and then here inside of your assignment details, I'm going to add that in as well, just as a backup, just in case you want to do what I'm going to attempt to do right now on the Mac side, which is grab this and put it here. So now you don't have to do the conversion. It's here, and you have an extra piece of data, the CSV file, which is, like I said, a beautiful thing. Okay, so now that I have this here, then I should be able to go to my MacBook and refresh, and then it should come up with my CSV file. Yay! Right there it is. So now I don't have to do that work, just in case I don't have like Excel, or you don't have Excel on your MacBook Pro and you want to use a CSV file, which you can. Let's do it. So now I'm going to just say, I want to save this. Here it is. And I want to put it in a place where I know I'm going to use it. For us, that was last week. That was for practice. I'm just using MDEV something or another, like something in here. So we can kind of search for a folder or whatever. I'm just going to put it in the downloads folder and just say save. And at least I know where it is. There it is. And then I'm going to use my Finder. I'm going to use my Finder to organize my stuff a little bit. One thing that you can also look at is Finder is kind of interesting. Right now it's giving me size and everything else, and kind. That means that if I open up my my Finder window here on the Mac, you're going to see what type is it. You can also sort by kind to make my job a little bit easier. So if there's anything in here where I had my stuff, then it'd be a folder that I would have here. Okay, so that's kind of what I did. And we also had kind of a file like that last week, but it was in my own personal folder, my own personal directory, right? Which is, for example, I said I want to go to Tom's MacBook Pro and I want to go to Mac.hd. I've kind of exposed this thing. You can do your thing in different ways. I'm going to go to users and then Thomas, and then you can see again I can go kind. And then there's my MDEV1001, and I kind of did a little ICE3DB here, and I'm going to remove that file. One thing you can do is, one thing we can talk about is, how about deleting databases? That's easy. Just go to the file and then move to trash, and then that file, it'd be gone. It's gone, right? You don't have to worry about that stuff. And I can also just launch another Finder, just like I did before. Here's my other Finder here, and I can just drag and drop from there. Again, this is a bit of Mac how to do. And we know what it's called. It's called database data, right? Which is the type. So if I go back to the kind, and if I, kind of sort by kind. So here's the kind. And then you can look down and you can see that there are be PDFs and whatever else you guys have here. I have a bunch of disastrous stuff in here, and there's some Excel data, and of course I've lost here it is, my CSV stuff. And here's my database CSV, and I can just drag and drop that database CSV here, which moves it. And now I have it. It's called database data.csv. Okay, cool. And then in the command, let's do that command together as practice, right? Then I would do a ls, which means, list. That's my list command, ls. And then it would show me everything. If I wanted to do a list with more detail, try this, ls space .al. And that means display all kind of thing. It gives you everything, including on the because this is a Linux type of machine, your Mac, right? On the left hand, you'll see that it also gives you read-write permissions on the left, right? And these are different kinds of permissions. This is directory, read, write, and execute, right? Then this is user, group, and then there's user. It's kind of like in different order, right? So that's how it works. And then you can see that some are executable. Some directories are going to be executable. We don't care about the executable directories. We know that this one is the one that we want, the MDEV directory right here. And you can see that the directory has read, write, and execute permissions on that one. And we can see we can read and execute right from this level. Read and execute right there. That's what this does for us, right? Who owns it? That's the owner, right? As an example, what group is it? I don't know why, but it called me staff for some reason, right? And so that's how I've organized myself in terms of the way it works. So let's get in there. I'm going to do a clear command. I'm going to say cd space mdev, and then it's going to give me here. I'm going to do another ls command. It's going to give me this. And now I can do the same thing. I can do I want to create a database called ICE3 DB, which is what we're going to be doing today. Let's try it. So let's do that. So I'm going to say SQLite 3 / and then it's going to be ICE3 DB. DB, I said, okay. Hey, there it is. I'm using ICE3 DB in the local folder. And now we want to follow that example to do this part, which is I want to do an import. So .import, and it's got to be the local path. And where is it going to go? It's going to go into a table. Now remember, it says first, the SQLite tool creates a table. The SQLite tool uses the first row of the CSV file as the name of the columns in the table, which is kind of interesting, which is this. So import this file into the table cities. That's what it's going to be. Let's try this out. Okay. So we're going to say .import / and then the name of the file. Now this is kind of interesting. You could try some stuff. If I said database data, can I do this? Can I go database data? Is that okay? Would that work? What's wrong with this this picture? All right. By the way, I'm doing it for those people who just don't know. And please, I'm not judging you. Okay. So what would you do here instead? How would I fix this? So Chukwu, you were going to say something. I want to hear your words. Tell me.
Yeah, you can have two separate words like this, so we can maybe
I can do this? I can do that like this?
No.
What I do? How would I fix this problem?
You can use maybe an underscore there.
Underscore? No, I don't have an underscore. I have database data. That's how it's listed. How do I load a file like that from a folder?
You can drag it and drop here.
Here in SQLite? Are you sure?
You're trying to import the already file that is already there. We're not supposed to have the space like the database and the data. I think we're supposed to get the file. We already have the CSV file somewhere.
This is it right here. Here it is. So you're saying if I did this, would that work? Can I do this? And the answer is yes. It kind of works, which it kind of does the drag and drop. It's a beautiful thing, like you said, right? That's one way of doing it. But it does a very specific thing where it says database and then it says / space. That's what Mac does to figure out, the space. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, Eric.
Can you do it the same way that you would on Mac, where it's like %20 to get the space character? or is
Yeah.
that like a Windows only thing?
It's okay. No, this is Mac. I just did this on the Mac. This is the Mac side. I just did a drag and drop.
No, yeah, I know. I'm asking if
Yeah.
that is the same. On
Yes,
Mac
it is.
as you
Yes,
can
it is.
use-
It
yeah,
is.
okay.
It's absolutely the same. What about, so this is one way. What about if I did, instead of this way, this is one way of doing it. What about if I did something like, quotes? Is that allowed? Can I go / and then I did the same thing, database, data.csv, and then where into movies, because that's the movies database. Could I do that? Right? And then if it works, by the way, we don't need to, do I need a semicolon here? No, right? So now I did it. Take a look at that. It actually created the table. ICE3DB is right there, right? Let's do our first query on the table to see what it has, right? So if I did something like select, actually, let's do a schema. We'll say, if I want the schema for movies, what does it give me? It says create table movies, movie ID, title, studio, genre, directors, writers, actors, and everything is text. That's what it gives you. So it actually made all of these things is imported as text. So let me just expand this window so you can see what it did for us, right? It did this. Okay, is this correct? Is this correct? Is this what we want?
No.
Eric's shaking his head. Tash says no. The answer is no. This is not what we want, right? And this is not what we want because this is not giving us a rating that's a real number, right? So we want to modify this. We want to modify the table, right? So to see, all these columns, these are all the columns, right? And I want to modify these things and see what happens. Let's take a look and see if I did a query. So I'm going to say select star from movies. Press enter. And then, oops, I need to press semicolon. And then it does all this, right? Did all that. So it kind of said, okay, interesting. It did, Star Wars. This is the first one. Episode 4, Empire Strikes Back, comma, 20th Century Fox, comma, and then in quotes, action, adventure, fantasy. Interesting. Okay. Then comma, and then Irvin Kershner, right? And then it did comma, and then it did, bleed bracket, Lawrence Kasdan, and George Lucas quotations, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher quotations, 1980, 124, regular numbers, that's what it did, followed by a description, and in quotes, PG as the rating, 8.7 as the critics rating, and then the next one. So that's kind of what it did. But here's something weird. Normally when we do a table, I got the data, right? But what did it do for a column? Did it make a column? Did it do things right? Like, what did it do here, right? Because something's not right. I'm just being honest, right? Something's not right. So now we would use something like, Visual Studio Code, right? So if I want to use Visual Studio Code here, and let's go into that in-class exercise number 3. Okay. I want to go into in-class exercise number 3 and do this thing, because this is kind of one of your things for today. I want to grab this and let's do a copy, because I want to make a copy of all this stuff we just did, right? And I want to connect to in-class exercise number 3 in here as well. Okay, so let's do it. So here, what I did was on the desktop, I have MDEV1001. That was my practice place I had of like this area, right? And I want to make a brand new one here. Let's make a brand new new folder. Here we are. And I'll do MDEV1001 M2023. And there's ICE3. Wonderful. And we almost have everything we need. Let's do a couple things. To be safe, let's close this terminal down. Okay, so let's quit. Okay, so now we've closed off that file. We'll even close the terminal, so we don't need it right now. Okay. And I want to grab this ICE3DB, right? And I want to copy it. So I want to leave it. That was my test. Kind of looked like it worked. Go back in here and then paste it. Let's see what happens. Here's my pastings. Okay. It looks like a document, and I pasted it into ICE3. And now what I want to do is, for Visual Studio Code, I want to drag and drop ICE3 here into Visual Studio Code here, right? And it says, oops, let's try that again. I meant, let's just make sure there's only one of these open, and let's just drag this in here. That's better. And now we can see there's ICE3. Wonderful. And that's the file. Now I want to go back into my database and I want to make a new connection. So notice like these little lines that keep moving around. It says node runtime auto detected, right? Using blah, blah, blah. And yes, I do. Okay, fine. And yeah, sure. And it has a little thing here that talks about node and all that stuff. But I also have a connection here from the previous ICE. I want to add another connection. So here's my new connection. And I want to use my SQLite tool. I want to select a file. Just like this is all review from last week, guys. And I want to skip up to where it's supposed to go, to ICEs. And then down into ICE3 and into ICE3DB and click open. And then I want to kind of put this like ICE3, DB connection. You can name this whatever you like. Kind of like I did ICE2 connection. We can say ICE3 connection. How about that? Just to make it so that it's the same. Save. And then it kind of does this little JSON script, which is where it saves the connection data in your hidden .vs folder. That's what it's going to do. That's where it's going to go. And then I'm going to click on connect now. And then hopefully it's going to connect. It says detach from and whatever. Well, now that I've connected, that's pretty simple. It shows you there's movies, and then, this does not compute. That's what I was trying to show you. What's the problem with this thing? Yeah? Go, Eric.
Looks exactly what you wanted it to do.
No, it doesn't. It's terrible. Why? It kind of made this massive one column thing, which is a beast. It's not what we want. This is not what we want. And it told me this because if I was to actually go through, I wanted to show you this, and I had shortcuts and all that. But if I was going to go through and take a look at this thing here, all right, so here's my ICE3, and let's do the same thing that we did before. I'm just going to kind of collapse this so you can see it in all of its ugly glory over here. And if I did some of the same thing, if I said something like, okay, let's take a look at that file. So I'm going to say SQLite 3, and then I want to do /, and the name of the file, which is ICE3DB, press enter, and then I say something like, databases, and then databases, I'll be okay. It tells me the database. This is good. And if I say tables, right, can I do tables, right? It says movies. And if I says schema movies, well, this is the problem. You could see it, right? Because here's the movies table, right? And then it says all of this is text, which means each of these things is one massive, crazy thing, right? Which is not right. How could I fix this problem? And what did I do wrong when I exported? Is there something I can do differently? Because, it imported the CSV file. We did that. That's very clear, right? But it imported all of the columns as one column. That's what it did. Every column is one column now, right? And that's not what we want. We want each column to be separated into multiple columns. So what do we do wrong? How do we fix this problem? Maybe you can do a search. Help me out. Maybe engage for those people who are very quiet. This is your course. as it is anyway, right? So think about this, right? So I created a table, if not exists, movies, and then I put all this stuff in here and all the data, and all of it is text. And that's a terrible thing. And we saw the same thing. So that's what SQLite did when it did its import. And what did I do wrong? It says here, import file table, right? Here's the file. Here's the table, right? I did the exact same thing.
Yeah, was there a reason you skipped one step in this page now? Because there was a step the main
let's take a look at their file. Let's take a look at their file, because they remember there's always stuff you have to look at, right? Let's see what their file looks like. So here on this site, here's the actual site I was looking at, SQLite tutorial. And I'm going to populate this here on your chat so you can see it. There it is on the chat, right? So remember, because we grab random resources from online, we try and do this stuff out, and then we're like, hey, it doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Let's think like developers. I'm going to try and grab this, this file. Let's try it out. It's going to, kind of put it into where I want it, which is going to be here under Let's put it inside of assignments 2 and call it city. And then let's open it up, and I'm going to open this up with like the editor to see what the editor sees. Now this is important because who cares what Excel sees? Excel, right? We care about the editor, what the editor sees, because the editor is going to see a raw data file, right? So back to this, I'm going to go to assignments, go to city, and I'm going to go edit. Oh, right? Look at that. And it's just this kind of data. Okay. So we have kind of look like ours, right?
Yeah,
didn't it? Kind of look like ours. And it has two parts. It has city. This is the city table, which the name and the population. Let's see, play around, right? Let's see if you can take this same table and do this. Let's make a city table locally on our Mac, right? So back to this, and I'm just going to close off this connection. It says, do you want to save the session? Sure. And I'm going to close this off. I'm going to go back to here.
There was a step I think we missed from that tutorial we were reading from. The dot mode to tell the SQLite that it's a CSV file. We actually missed that step.
What step? What do you mean?
Yeah, so
I'm perfect. I did everything perfect. I don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, so it's right there. They said first set the mode to CSV to instruct the command line to interpret the input file as a CSV file. So dot mode. So we didn't do that.
No,
Yeah.
we didn't, because people do this. People do the exact same thing that we're talking about here, which is they look and they go, I don't know what's happening, which is very good. Mode is the way to go. And that was an example of me doing that exact same thing. And then they have a problem. You need to do this first. It's not like it's an order. And very good. You actually read things. You read the tutorial. People don't read the tutorial, right? Eric's like, ChatGPT would never make that mistake. You're right, Eric. The ChatGPT is better than me. I don't know. But this is bad, right? So take a look. So let's try and fix it. How do we fix this problem? So again, going back to this, remember, we can always delete the table again. It's not going to kill anything to do that. So here's our IceDB. We can just delete it. Right, there it is. And we can make it again. So we can do the command line again, where don't have to kill the connection, because the connection is still going to point to the same file. That's just a saved connection, right? So all we have to do here is just do the same thing. We can say something like SQLite 3, and then we want to do the file we want, which is the database name / and then ice3db b. I'll be okay. Enter. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll say mode is CSV, right? And then
I think you do have to move your CSV file because you're in a new place, right?
Come
You're in
on.
ICE3.
What do you mean? Of course we do. So I have to move that in here. So that means I have to go to downloads, where we have that CSV file, which is
No, you moved it to the MDEV on your desktop.
I did.
Just where you did ICE2.
It's possible.
I'm not
Did I?
exactly sure where it ended up, but I think it's in
No,
that ICEs
it's not
folder.
here. It's not here, right? And it's not here, right? We need to have that CSV file. Now that's under downloads, if I'm not wrong, or is it under? No, it's under
Well,
Thomas.
you moved from there to
Yeah, no. So it's
to
here,
the one
and it's
on
under
your
here,
side.
and it's under here, and it's under there, and down in here into this MDEV. People get all this stuff confused, like me. And I would have figured it out because it would be like no file, right? And here it is. I want to copy this file. Let's try this again, and go back up to the desktop, like a good person should. And then we'll go into this part, and go into this part, and then press paste. Let's try that again now. So now, then we'll do something like I can use my arrow keys to kind of go up there and repeat this, right? So I don't have to do it again, right? Because I've already got that. That's what I want. I want to press enter. It did it. And then I can just space up again until I go schema. I can did it. Now this looks better, right? Now this looks what it should be. And we did this kind of exercise for a couple of reasons. One, it's still not right, right? Because you can see that MPA rating should not be text. It should be something else, right? Because then we can't do where this is greater than if it's text. If it's text, text is like one of the things we talked about here. But everything else looks good now. And if I go back to this, and if I look at my connections, so here's my connections, and if I refresh, right? Here's what I want to do. I want to kind of maybe disconnect and connect, right? Here it is. This is me connecting again. And if I open this up and go to tables and go to movies, now this is what I want to see, right? And so now I have all of that hard work that what you would have done by hand. Don't do it by hand, right? And you got all this. And this is like, I just gave you like almost like some marks just there, right? Because we already have the schema. It's kind of partly done. But we're going to talk about ways of modifying this stuff because I want to modify the movie ID. That's what I want to do here, right? I want to modify this movie ID so that it is an auto-incrementing key, right? And this is something that's not been done here. Next, what I want to do is I want to do for the movies table, I want to do a query that shows me everything. And just pressing this little kind of magnifying glass. And I know I've done this a couple of times here last week and this week and even the week before. But I want to show you this because, look, that's everything we want in a format. And it's got nicely all the data up here. And this is in a list format. This is a list, a string, right? Okay. Questions around this? Anybody? Or comments? Good, bad, ugly? How do you feel about this?
How did it get fixed from all the text to the right?
We use the mode, like
Just the mode command did it, right? Like,
Kosa Sochuku said it. She's like, we didn't read it. Tom, you didn't read the stuff, Tom, right? I wasn't a good developer, right? And she picked up on that instantly because that's how good her eyes are. And she said, no, you have to do this. And she's right. We had to set mode CSV. Once we say mode CSV, we set the mode to an import statement. We followed it with an import statement. So now we know we're getting information from a CSV file. And guys, of course, it makes sense this way because imagine if the customer gives you data, you're going to slog it and add it by hand. Come on, that doesn't make sense. And there's other tools, by the way, out there. Tons of other tools that'll do the exact same thing. We're going to see this process. We're going to copy this process for MongoDB. We're going to copy this process for Firebase. We're going to copy this process for a bunch of other things. And this is an example of just some code we have our data that we have that we're going to manipulate. Okay. All right. Awesome. Right. I like it. And this is kind of a really great starting point, but we need to do some commands to fix this problem. And we're going to do that after the break. Okay. So let's take a short break. We're sitting at 5:15. I've been talking with technical issues for about an hour, right? And I think we talked about your assignment. We also talked about how to import stuff. This is for your assignment, which is assignment related. So I think we should just stop right here and then take a short break. We'll take, let's take 10. I'm going to get a coffee. I'm not going to sleep tonight anyway. And I got mopping up to do, right? So that's what I got to do. And I know it's crazy, isn't it? And then when we come back in 5:25, we'll continue with the next piece, which is what do we do next? Okay, let's take a short break, and I'm going to stop recording now. And of course, I did not record. I only recorded on YouTube this time because no one said anything about me recording on Teams. No one's watching that Teams thing. They're only watching the YouTube thing, right? All right, so I'll stop recording. And I'll go back to this.